Okay, yes, hello, thank you for inviting us. I'm Corey, this is Sarah, and we're talking about 3 questions for the design of AI for music composition. So the way we came about writing this abstract is we were both doing studies, and we'd both done interviews of some kind, and were doing a thematic analysis, and so this was an excuse for us to talk to each other and try and come up with something together. So study 1 is my work. So I've talked to 22 students. These are computer science students, but some are in creative computing, some are in design. And I've done video cued recall interviews with an interface I developed. Okay, so they compose music with this interface. I then play it back to them afterwards, and they pause it, and we have questions at the points they pause it at. And it's on an AI-based music composition system.
For my study, I interviewed 13 expert composers, specifically for media, so video game composers and film composers. It was done by semi-structured interviews, and we were really interested in understanding the process and how they use harmony, melody, and leitmotifs in film and media composition.
Okay, so this is my thing that I have made. As some context, the PhD project, I think I'm talking to a room of people where I say, if we're designing musical interfaces for things like engagement or flow, that's a really good thing, right? Making people really in the zone. In my PhD, I say, hey, there's also this reflection thing, right? Where you might stop and think, or you might be more self-aware about what you're doing. And I'm sort of exploring the two of them and putting AI in it, because that's where my funding is. And so this is the interface, right? It's got some puzzle-shaped blocks that you can click together, and there's a grid of notes that you can click in and press play. The big thing that happens every 25 seconds is AI pops in, right? And so these blocks do lots of crazy things, right? They sometimes fly into the middle of the workspace to try and get people to sort of take notice of them. And the idea is, does this sort of AI design help people reflect, or does it completely kill their flow and ruin the whole experience for them? So here are some themes from the interviews I did. One theme is that everyone had a different motivation to compose, right? I asked them to write a piece of music, which is a super open-ended thing to ask people. So some people thought, hey, this looks really fun, and they just messed around for the full 20 minutes. Those people found the AI really fun, right? These blocks flying in, it was hilarious to click on them and mess around with them. Other people wanted to actually write good songs and do good music, and they found the AI blocks less useful. They'd say things like, why is this person trying to help me? I want them to go away, right? And so they found the AI really annoying. People did say things like, oh, the AI came in whilst I was stuck, and it helped me know what to do next. They say things like, it helped me come up with ideas, right? So it does seem to help things in the composition process. But what a lot of people did, right, was an AI block would come along, and they would go, this is AI, it's super amazing, it must be better than what I can do, and what I know about music, so they would just use it, and do exactly what it says without even thinking about it, which is a bad thing, right? If you're thinking about blindly trusting AI, there's wider problems with that. And the interruptions weren't too overwhelming, right? People found them annoying, but it didn't seem to completely ruin their experience. They were almost ignorable, in that when they flew on the screen, they could ignore it and it would eventually fly away out the screen. So I think I got away with it in that they still found it kind of fun.
Right, some context for my study. So I'm really interested in understanding the process of composition for film and video games, specifically how composers interact with their tools, and also how they use music theory to express emotion and the narrative, within music. Yeah. So a couple of themes for my study. Challenges. So obviously we spoke about the challenges of being a composer. In the industry, and this includes like general challenges like writer's block, understanding what the scene needs. So you've got this dialogue. Do you write something that's quite subtle, or do you really try and represent what the dialogue is saying? And then other stuff like finding your own voice as a composer because you want to be recognized, but also not being so different from everybody else that nobody wants to hire you. Yeah, our theme is working leitmotifs, so like how do composers use leitmotifs. So do you write a general theme, so like love theme or fight theme, or do you write a theme for a specific character, so you know this character's theme, and then when they interact with each other, the themes also interact with each other's. Yeah, then the process, so how, yeah, as I said, how they work with the tools that they have, and also where the inspiration comes from. Really interesting, we found that their process is guided by intuition. So when I asked them, you know, how do you know that the theme you wrote is actually right for this character or not right for the character? A lot of them said, I feel it, or I just know it. And then actually someone else, another participant, said that they think the intuition might actually come from experience of working in this industry for many years. And yes, then modern music for media, we actually found that how leitmotifs work and how music for media work is changing. So, you know, if you think of leitmotifs like John Williams, you know, really long leitmotifs, really like developed. Nowadays it's changing. People, the composers, tend to write shorter motifs and less complex because it's easier to use them and develop them.
Okay, so those were the things we came up with. We sat down and we talked to each other, and we sort of converged on sort of 3 big questions for designing interfaces for music and AI. So the first one is about this human-centered AI perspective, where the idea is that if we're increasing automation, human control should be increased also. And so we asked, how can we design AI tools that support composers' agency? Lots of things on that, not a super interesting question. But we also have some more sort of artist-led questions that people might consider. So things like how to design AI to support people in finding their own musical voices. Okay, your composers want to have their own stamp on the music they wrote, and I had composers who wanted to try and do something good and make a piece for them. And the other thing is, how can we design to support this intuition thing, where a lot of the decisions composers are making are based on the sort of in-the-moment, tacit kind of knowledge that occurs. So I'll blast through future work super quickly. Mine is, when I say it's submitted to a journal, it's with the editor, at least. And so I've got a whole PhD where I'm looking at this reflection idea, and I'm looking at lots of different AI tools now.
Yeah, and I'm currently writing a paper, and hopefully at some point it will be published. And the main plan for the study is to support the design of an AI tool, which is for my PhD. And yeah.
Okay, so thank you for listening. I feel like it'd be bad. I'm running out of money in like September, so if anyone has jobs or postdocs or things like this, then, you know, hi, how are you doing? Thank you for listening.
Hi, thank you so much, both of you. And I actually have more of than a question, like something about a reflection. At some point in one slide, there was this like thinking reduction, compositional help, and I think like this was also something in your questions that came up. And I was thinking like, do you think this overall might be like rather a negative or a positive thing? Like, do you think like this shift, like this balance between thinking reduction and compositional help somehow? And also, do you think there's a connection between this and the expertise of the actual user? So do you think, for example, a less expert composer might benefit more, even if the thinking reduction is, you know, decreased, or maybe like a more experienced one might instead be impaired more by this thinking reduction? Yeah, I don't know if I made myself very clear, but
I don't know.
Thank you.
What do you think?
Well, for my composers, I know that a lot of them were complaining about having they say literally the stamina to keep producing new ideas. So for example, the director gives you a brief, and you write music, and then you give it to the director, and the director is like, actually this is nothing like we wanted, write it again. And this happens, you know, until the director is happy. So maybe it might help them feel less pressured, you know what I mean? Like, you write something, and then if you have some help from AI, does it make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
And I also think we're talking about this intuition thing, right? And that's kind of something that you learn by doing something for a long time and building up your sort of inner knowing. And so I guess if you suddenly have AI just giving you ideas, then you don't develop the skill of coming up with your own ideas that way. So that could be problematic, maybe.
Hi. In the early days of algorithmic live coding stuff, one of the things that came across was like the benefit of the algorithms, how they were suitable for generating the audio. And one of the things that I think Andrew Sorensen talked about was actually to test whether this algorithm is good or not, let's actually put the algorithm into the system, and let's also put white noise into the system to see if that actually produced any massive difference. Is this actually producing something better than white noise? Did you ever do, those are quite a simple little boxes, did you ever like randomly generate them rather than use the AI and see if there was any difference between the two?
I haven't done that, but we did start off with, the idea for the interface was they'd be matched by like music metric values, right? And they'd be clustered around the edges. And people didn't like that. They couldn't figure out what the relationship was at all. And so it's now doing continuations that are a bit similar, which they seem to like better, or maybe it supports their engagement better. So kind of, but not really.
Well, I find, this is obviously my personal opinion, some of this cynicism might come from not totally understanding how AI works. So a lot of my participants were calling AI the machine during the interviews, and always let's know exactly how it works, or like he or she, like very making it kind of almost like a human, right? And actually, when I posted my call for participants on Twitter or X, I had someone saying, "Oh, so you can steal our jobs?" It was like, no, actually not. So I don't know. It's really difficult because I understand the worry, but I also feel like we have to keep working together because this is happening whether composers like it or not, right? And if we can work together to make it ethical and useful, maybe that's a good thing, right? Does it answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about what, in maybe your opinions and also the composer's opinions, what aspects of that are useful and what are seen as a threat?
There's actually a study by someone else and about this specifically, and their results basically said that composers were really against melody generation because melody was something that came from the heart, according to composers, where they were more open to chord generation and sound generation, like synthesis or kind of stuff.
And so I did a public engagement-y type talk to the music managers forum, so they all manage musicians. And I met one person who manages a big rock band, right? And I thought, great, do they want to do some research with me? That'd be amazing. And the answer's definitely not right. They hate AI, they think it's scary and terrible. But the manager was interested in doing it because he wanted to make the AI that makes that band's music so that they get paid for it, instead of someone else beating them to it and them not getting any money. So that might be one way to convince people to think about AI, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's bad.
Oh, yeah, it's not good.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next presentation. So thank you, Corey and Sara.